Namaste everyone. Today is Natural Cooling Group 28th webinar, and the topic is how yoga practice helps physical fitness, mind purification, and self-realization, or in another way to say, uh, yoga for health, fitness, mind purification, and self-realization by Dr. Vikram from USA. Today we'll discuss about 8 limbs of yoga and yoga postures for physical fitness and beyond. Yeah, Vikramji, over to you.
Thank you, Sudhir, and thank you to Natural Eco Living Group for inviting me for this webinar. Are you able to see my screen?
Share your screen now.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Great. You should be able to see the screen. It says yoga for health, fitness, mind purification, and self-realization. Is this visible now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Now we can mute everybody and I will speak for the next, I would say 15 to 20 minutes. I have about 20 or so slides. And then thereafter we can open this up for discussion. Thanks to Dr. Chakradhar Uni for sponsoring this webinar and also all the participants who are here. Good morning to people who are viewing me from the US. Good evening to people who are viewing me from India. Let's talk for the next 15-20 minutes on what I understand about yoga, what I have understood through my practice. So initially, as I always do, there is a disclaimer. The information here is not intended for the purpose of providing medical advice. All information, content, and material presented here are for informational purposes only and not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider, or in this case, a yoga instructor. You should do everything you do under the instruction of somebody who is experienced near you. I'm only presenting my personal experience and I do not assume any liability. If you listen to this and just do something without any guidance, and if something bad happens to you, don't come and blame me. I'm just giving you general principles and hopefully they all are helpful to you. Okay. So we will talk about what is yoga, why we do yoga. So when we know why we are doing something, then it is easier for us to actually do it. We will talk briefly about the yoga philosophy. We will talk about the 8-fold yoga path. I'll also talk about basic yogasana rules. I'll show you some postures, some routine that I do every day, and some concluding remarks. After this, it is possible that some people will feel this is too preliminary because they are advanced practitioners, so they kindly excuse me and bear with me. Some people may think this is way too advanced than what they are used to, so they also can bear with me. Some people may think this is just right. All I'm doing is sharing my experience. Okay? I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not trying to look down upon anybody, and I'm not trying to look up to anybody. We are all on the same path. Okay? Wherever we are, based on our own experience as well as our own practice. So I have no expectation that you will agree with me. So you are welcome to disagree with me. Let's go through the presentation first and then we'll take some questions. So why yoga, or what is yoga? See, yoga literally means union. Okay. If you look at the literary meaning of the word yoga, so union of what? Union of the individual with the total. That's what yoga is. Okay. Yoga in Marathi language also means way. You do something using some yoga. In fact, in yoga, in Gita, there are 18 different yogas. Each chapter is defined as a particular yoga. So Arjuna Vishada Yoga, then Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Purushottam Yoga, and all those things, they are different ways to achieve the same objective. Yoga can also be understood as a method or as a tool. Yoga is just a tool. It's not an end in itself. All right. Also, in most of the world, yoga is understood as a physical exercise. Yoga is understood as twisting your body into impossible shapes, just like Rujuta Bapat is doing here in these pictures. her mother, Gauri, is my sister. So she very kindly let me use some of her pictures, because look at this girl, she is hardly 10 years old and amazing flexibility. Okay, so she is a budding yogini. She happens to be a state level yoga person in Maharashtra. So why do we do yoga? If you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, they start with Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Okay? So thus yoga. Then he talks about, this is the second verse, second, third and fourth verses of the Yoga Sutras. It says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means when you are in a state of yoga, all misconceptions or vrittis that arise in your mind, that can exist in the mutable aspect of human beings or the chitta, they will disappear. A lot of people make this the goal of their yoga practice. I want to still my mind, I want to make my mind steady. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, nothing should appear in my mind. So they work very hard on controlling the mind. That's not the objective of yoga. It says in the very second verse or the third verse, it says Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Vasthanam. So why do you do this Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha? Because we want to find our true self. Okay? That entails insight into our own nature. So the goal of yoga is self-realization, not controlling your mind. Okay? The mind will get controlled when you understand who you are. Okay? So many things are involved in yoga practice, and we will go through some of them as described by Patanjali. Then it says Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra. Lacking that, misconceptions skew our perceptions. So when our mind is not steady, when our mind is not still, when we have not even understood what the mind is, then all kinds of thoughts will come into our mind and our mind will go haywire. So that's what we want to control. That's why yoga. If you do the yoga practice seriously and sincerely, you will be blessed with lifelong health and fitness. Okay? Some of these photographs I'm showing here are my own yoga postures from almost 10, 15 years ago. But I can assure you, I can do these postures even now with the same ease. So you get lifelong health and fitness. Your body remains healthy, flexible, and free of any kind of disease. Your mind is still serene, peaceful, and blissful. You realize who you are, or you at least question and start wondering, who am I? And you start your journey in this direction. Okay? Ultimately, there is an elimination of otherness. That elimination of otherness itself is called yoga. So when there is no other, then me and the other have united. So that is what yoga means. When I have eliminated the sense of otherness in my mind, I become peaceful. And as everybody becomes peaceful, then this leads to a peaceful society and peaceful environment. Because I'm no longer in the mindset of me versus the other, me versus the other person, me versus the other species, me versus the environment. This otherness disappears. So that is the benefit of yoga. Okay? See, this is in a few bullet points, yoga philosophy is just an overview. This is not in any kind of detail. So if you disagree with me, please just bear with me. You see, we all seek happiness, all right? But most of us are unfortunately satisfied with the diluted version. Diluted version means the happiness we get when a sense object comes in contact with a sense organ. So if I eat something very tasty, then the tasty substance and my sense of taste, they come together. That is yoga also. And I'm very happy with it. Okay, but once we realize that this is very diluted and which is actually temporary and also dependent. So this kind of happiness, which is enjoyed when a sense object comes in contact with the sense organ, it depends upon that sense object. It also depends upon your ability or my sense organ's ability to enjoy that oneness. Okay? So if I'm really hungry, then I enjoy what I eat. Right? But that same thing, say I like some kind of mithai, say rasagulla, okay? That rasagulla, the first rasagulla when I'm hungry, tastes wonderful. But the second rasagulla doesn't taste as good. And the 10th rasagulla definitely does not taste as good. All right. If I keep eating, then the same thing which brought me happiness in the beginning will bring me misery at the end. So this is very temporary. So once we are dissatisfied with such temporary pleasures, then we will seek higher happiness, which lasts for a long time. We'll seek eternal bliss. That's what we are all seeking. Unfortunately, we just don't recognize it. We don't recognize that the bliss is actually within us. It only manifests itself when something like this happens, and we mistake that bliss for that temporary happiness. Bliss is actually our true nature. That is our essential nature. It is only unfolding. It unfolds through regulated lifestyle aligned with natural law. Okay? So this is what happens when you do yoga, or when you align your entire life according to yoga. So Patanjali Muni, who has systematically described this yoga practice, has defined these 8 limbs or 8 steps in yoga. Okay. These are the Sanskrit names. So I'm going to say these names now, but I'm going to explain them in the following slides. The first is yama, which is what not to do. Then niyama means what to do. Asana means posture. Asana literally means sitting comfortably. Okay. Then pranayama. Pranayama means the balance of prana or life energies within us. Also, they can be done, or it can be done through controlling your breath. I'll discuss a little bit about that. Then pratyahara. Pratyahara means control over sense organs and consuming only as much as necessary. Then dharana. Dharana is focus or direction. Dhyana means meditation. And then samadhi is the ultimate realization of who you are. All right. So yama means restraints. This is basically how we deal with the world. You know, the world should not be a problem for me, and I should not be a problem for the world. So that is achieved through yama. So these are the things we should not do. What should we not do? We should not do any violence through either body, physical violence, or through speech, or even in our thoughts. We should not think of anybody in any bad way. Okay, so that is no violence. Then no lying means satya. So ahimsa, satya, these are the first 2 yamas. These were emphasized by Mahatma Gandhi during the freedom struggle. Okay, so of course it worked for him at that time. Times are different now. How it has to be implemented in our life today, that is up to each one of us. Then no stealing, asteya, means you should not take anything from anybody or even from the environment which is beyond your needs and which you have not earned through honest means. That is asteya. Then brahmacharya means no indulgence. Brahmacharya literally means our walk towards Brahma, and Brahma means expansion or totality. So when we are walking or on our path towards the totality or towards infinity, that is called brahmacharya, not merely celibacy as it is understood by people. Okay. Then no hoarding. Aparigraha means do not collect more things than necessary. That is aparigraha. Then we've learned what not to do. Now then what to do? See, these observances or niyamas are how do we deal with ourselves. Okay. So first we learned how to deal with the world, what we consider as the world, as the other. And now how do we deal with ourselves, what I consider as myself. So for that, number 1 is shaucha, means cleanliness. And that cleanliness is not just of the surroundings, but the cleanliness of our own body and our mind, more importantly. All right. The second thing is contentment or santosha. Santosha means being satisfied, being content with what we have, and not always long for or crave for more and more and more material things. Okay. The third thing is discipline and austerities. It is called tapa in Sanskrit. Tapa also means to heat. Okay. So when we heat ourselves up through that tapa, all the impurities in our body and mind will get burned away, basically. That's what tapa means. Then the fourth thing is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means the study of the self, and self means our true self. Swa means self, Adhyaya means study. Okay? Swadhyaya. And then Ishvara Pranidhana is basically alignment with natural law. Okay? See, there is a natural law that is all pervasive. It is completely beyond the physical nature as well as people's belief systems, caste, creed, color of skin or religion or whatever you believe in. It doesn't really matter. Truth is truth. Truth is not dependent upon whether we believe in it or whether we agree with it. It is always there. All right. All right. So the third thing, after we have learned yama and niyama, then we do asana. We come to the third step, which is the asana or the physical exercises. See, these asanas I do myself also every day to keep my body in shape, to keep my body flexible. If our body is flexible and it is free of any kind of disease, then more and more our attachment to the body, our awareness of the body decreases. So when you have a really well-oiled machine or very well lubricated machine, when the machine runs, you won't even hear it. That's how the body becomes when you keep it in a good shape. All right. So these exercises are basically warming up initially. I call it Sharira Sanchalana, or loosening up of the body, loosening up of the limbs. Then I do sun salutation, Surya Namaskara. Then I do the asanas lying on my back. Then I do the asanas on my abdomen. Then I do asanas sitting down. And then ultimately I do the headstand, Shirshasana. I'll show you all of these pictures. All right. So what is the next step? The next step is pranayama. Okay, pranayama is control over the life force. Life force is prana. Ayama means balancing of that. Okay, so the control of life force that can be achieved through several breathing exercises that can be done when you are experiencing any kind of imbalance. And there are certain techniques you can learn. So these need to be learned from a qualified teacher who is experienced in these. Okay, don't try to learn these on your own. And also, once you do these breathing exercises, you will get an experience from within. So that is very important. So anyway, you have to learn this through a qualified teacher or an experienced teacher. Then the next thing is pratyahara, as I said, withdrawal of sense organs from sense objects. Ahara means consuming something or enjoying something with the sense objects or sense organs. So withdrawal of sense organs from sense objects is pratyahara, means anti-ahara. The next step is dharana, which is focus or direction. Okay. So once we know that we don't want to indulge in worldly objects, then our direction changes and we turn inwards. That is dharana. And dhyana means meditation, meditation of the self, meditation of who I am. In fact, meditation has to be done 24/7. In the sense, we don't have to really do meditation, but we have to live meditatively. That is what meditation means. Meditation does not mean sitting down for half an hour for doing meditation and then the rest of the time you are frustrated. That's not meditation. Meditation is to be meditative. Do everything that you do with involvement as well as focus. Like I'm talking to you right now, this is also meditation. I'm speaking to you meditatively because I'm focusing on what I'm doing. All right. Then the last step is identification with the universal consciousness or samadhi. This is variously described by people as moksha or Sat Chit Ananda or nirvana, or in the Bible it says perfection. Therefore be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So these are the various ways of talking about the same experience. All right, so these are the eightfold path of yoga. This is the eightfold path of yoga. All right, so then I'm going to show you some slides on the yogasanas or the physical postures. A lot of people think of yoga as physical postures, so I'm going to focus a little bit on that also and talk about what yogasanas are. Okay, but before you do any yogasanas, you have to understand these rules. Okay, you have to do all of these exercises on an empty stomach. So usually I do my exercises when I get up in the morning, go to the bathroom, toilet, I'm emptying my bowels and all that. After that, I do the yogasanas. You have to breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. Never through your mouth unless through, for a specific pranayam, you have to breathe through your mouth. But other than that, you should breathe through your nose. You have to avoid breathing during movement. So whenever you are moving for doing a yoga posture, you should avoid breathing at that time. You should keep your movement very slow, do it very gently, and never overstretch. See, you should stretch your body to the extent it stretches at that particular moment. If you overdo it, if there is a pain, then you have done more than necessary. See, even in my case, the same posture doesn't happen exactly the same way every day. Even the Surya Namaskar I do, the first Surya Namaskar doesn't happen exactly the way the 12th Surya Namaskar happens. Okay, but I don't push it. I bend my body only to the extent it feels pleasurable. Okay, Yogasana should actually feel very, very pleasurable. If you don't feel pleasurable, then you've overdone it. So never overstretch. Don't drink, eat, or shower immediately after the asanas. Keep a regular routine of sleep, work, recreation, and meal times, 7 days a week. Human beings are the only animals that have a 5-day-a-week schedule. Okay, every other animal in nature has 7 days a week schedule. Okay, eat only when hungry. Ideally, you should eat raw or natural food. If you cannot do that, then you should eat freshly cooked food, and it should be made from scratch. Okay, and you should eat as soon as you cook it. Right after cooking, you eat it and finish it. Don't leave it in the refrigerator, reheat, process, or microwave it. Okay. Stale food is actually more work for the body for very little nutrition. It is not worth it. So you'll spend more energy in trying to get rid of the stale food or junk than you will get nutrition out of it. So it's not worth it. Also, you should fast overnight for 14 to 16 hours. Okay. If you do that, then the body detoxifies itself from within. And of course, we should eat to live and not live to eat. So if you want to live to eat, then this whole presentation is completely useless for you. All right. Don't even pay any attention to what I'm saying. All right. So this is my daily yoga routine, what I do. So initially, after I clean myself up and I sit down, I do a little bit of Kapalabhati, which is deliberate, forceful exhalation. So that clears up my sinuses. That's a part of or a kind of pranayama or a breathing exercise, which I do. Then I do a bit of deep breathing. And then I do Sharir Sanchalan or loosening of my body, loosening of my limbs. You can loosen up all of your joints. You can do it gradually from the tip of your fingers or toes all the way to your neck and head. Every joint you can move, you should move. Okay, I've not shown the entire thing here, but you can learn that from a qualified teacher. Once you have loosened up, this is the loosening up of the legs. After loosening up, then you do Surya Namaskar, or I do Surya Namaskar. So Surya Namaskar is initially you start with, this is called the Namaskarasana or Namanasana. Then you bend backwards, then you bend forward. This is the Hastapadasana. Then you see you are standing in front of your yoga mat. All right. So from there, one leg goes back. All right. So in this case, the left leg has gone back. Then in the next pose, the second leg also goes back and you keep your body in a straight line. This is called the plank. All right. Then you go down on your knees and touch your chest and your head to the floor, but your buttocks have to be up in air. They should not touch the floor. All right. Then this is called the Saštanga Namaskar. After that, you come up in Bhujangasana. Then you go back in Shvanasana or the dog pose. Then whichever leg went back first, that leg has to come up first. So if the left leg goes back first, then the left leg goes up first. Then maybe I have actually copied this from the previous picture. So this may not be correct. Oops. Page up. All right. Then you go back to the same Hastapadasana and come back to the Namanasana or Naman pose. So this is the entire Surya Namaskar routine. All right. The breathing rules in this pose is whenever you are bending backwards, your chest is open, so you breathe in. All right. Or your breath has to be in. And whenever you bend down or when you are bent forwards, then your breath has to be out. Your stomach has to be empty. So in the first pose, you take a deep breath, go back. Then breathe out and go down. Again, breathe in, go up. Breathe out, do the plank. Now here the breath has to be out. Everything has to be out. You hold the breath out and then you go down. And then then as you come up in the Bhujangasana, that's when you, where is my cursor here? That's when you breathe in. Then you go into the Shvanasana and breathe out. And again, come back up, breathe in, here breath out, and again, here again, breathe in. All right, so you've learned the Surya Namaskar or how it goes. You should learn it from an experienced teacher, as I said. If you want to talk to me separately, you are welcome to contact me and I'll be happy to guide you further. But you find out some local teacher near you and learn from them. All right, then the asanas on the back. So I do what is called the Pavan Muktasana. It helps relieve the wind in the body. There are a couple of ways of doing it, one with one leg, one with both the legs, and then you roll, rock and roll in this pose. Then I do the Matsyasana or the fish pose. Then I do the Chakrasana or the wheel, inverted wheel. Then I do the Sarvangasana. So I do this as the preliminary pose of Sarvangasana, and then here I do the complete Sarvangasana, which is the shoulder stand. And this is the Karna Pidanasana. This is like, it looks like the omega or a snail. You can look, you feel like. Then there is Halasana or the plow pose at the end here. Okay, then I do the asanas on the belly. All right. So the one on the top is called the Naukasana or the boat or the canoe. See, if you do this, this is the best asana for getting rid of the belly fat. All right. And see how nicely Rujuta here is doing. She does so much better than I do, of course, because she is less than 10 years old and I'm almost 60 now. All right. So, and then this next one is called Dhanurasana or the bow. This is the Shalabhasana or the locust. This is Bakasana, which I have learned more recently in the last 2 years. And this is Mayurasana. Okay. Bakasana is the crane and Mayurasana is the peacock. All right. Then I do the asanas sitting down in the sitting postures. The first one is Vajrasana or the thunderbolt. Then this is the forward bend or the Paschimottanasana. This is Akarna Dhanurasana. I do it with both the legs. And this is Gomukhasana as it is seen from the front and the back. Then this is called Ardha Matsyendrasana. And this is a butterfly pose. You hold your feet close to you and move your knees like the butterfly. Then this is the Padmasana. Okay. And this is a wonderful pose that Rujuta is demonstrating here, also done while sitting down. I don't know the name of it, but that's okay. These are the asanas in the sitting posture. All right, so this is the final asana, which is the Shirshasana I do. And this is the Shavasana. After you do the Shirshasana, you do Shavasana, relax and rest. This is the most favorite pose of everybody who lives on this planet. All right, just lie down and relax. And this anybody can do in any kind of shape and state of health. Even if you are not healthy, you can do Shavasana very easily. All right. So these are all the asanas I do routinely. Then after that, you can do pranayama. I don't always do it, but you can if you feel like. These are the different kinds of pranayama I have learned, or the breathing exercise I have learned. Kapalabhati, the forceful exhalation. Then Bhasrika, which is breathing in and out. Then deep breathing, breathe all the way to the bottom of your belly. Then Anulom Vilom is breathing through alternative nostrils. Then you do Ujjayi Pranayam, which is actually a heating pranayam. So in the winter, you should do Ujjayi. And then Shitali and Sadanti are the pranayam that you do during the summer because they cool you down. And there is a Bhramari pranayam, which is basically the humming sound like a bee. And Bhramari can be also done breathing out and breathing in through the nose. You don't breathe through your mouth. Okay. It's a very interesting exercise. You should learn all these from somebody who is qualified and who is somebody near you. You will enjoy these exercises. All right. So these are the concluding remarks. Yoga has tremendous benefits for body, mind, as well as spirit. We all have the capacity and the capability to enjoy great health, peace of mind, and well-being. We can all follow the path of yoga, natural law, and be happy. So thank you for listening to me so patiently. I can take questions. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat window, or you can raise your hand. We can unmute you, and then I can answer those questions. So there you can, I will stop this share. You can put my video on so that people can see me. I'll be happy to take questions now. Great to see all of you here. Almost 77 people are here right now. Wonderful. So any questions? Sudhir, are there any questions in the chat window?
Yes, sir. So first we'll mute all. Whoever has a question, raise your hands or type in the group chat. I mean, raise in the hands in the Zoom. Okay, sir, your name is. Yes, sir. Ask your question. Hello. You are not audible, sir.
Okay, I have unmuted myself. I was muted until now. So Dr. Selvan, I have seen you. You are raising your hand. So I'm going to unmute you, and please go ahead and ask your question now.
The host has to do it. I tried to do it. Now it's done. Okay.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Please. Yes, please go ahead.
Namaste, Dr. Vikramji. It's a wonderful, it's a complex science. You put it in a very elegantly and simple way. It's wonderful. That comes, that tells us, in fact, what the journey you went through. That's why you could put it in a simplistic way. One question, you mentioned that while doing asana, you should not be breathing. I think, would you please clarify? I think what I understood, what I learned and I've been doing is your movement should be synchronized with breathing, with awareness. But if you're not breathing, I wanted to clarify what do you really mean by?
Okay, so you should do the deep breathing after you have reached a certain pose. All right. So while you are moving, you should not try to breathe in and out hard. That's all.
Oh, that's what it. Okay.
All right, and then even while I do the Surya Namaskar, sometimes the breathing might happen like the breath will go out when I'm bending down, and the breath will go in when I'm breathing in, right? But don't breathe in and out while you're doing the movement. That's what I meant. Thank you for asking this question. I think that's a relevant question, and I'm delighted you asked it.
Yeah, I think.
All right.
Yeah, beautiful. While doing, you should not be breathing in and out.
Yeah.
That's correct. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you say, my first question is, take guidance from the known experts nearby or follow someone who knows it. How to identify whether a person is really good in yoga or not?
How to identify whether someone is good in yoga or not? That's a difficult question.
And second question is.
Yes. Second question is.
Hello. Yeah. Nowadays, yoga has become a nowadays yoga has become a marketing, like, more kind of a revenue generating under commercial entity. So which brand is good to follow?
All right, good. So I'll answer both the questions. Number one, how to identify whether somebody is a good teacher or not. So in one of my previous webinars, I had said there are 3 criteria for listening to somebody. All right, who should you listen to? Number one, if I'm telling you something, I should have experienced it myself first. I should have the first-hand experience. Secondly, I should have your well-being in my heart. So I should not be doing it for any kind of selfish reason. Your benefit, your well-being should be in my heart. And thirdly, I should not seek anything in return. I should not have any vested interest. If all three things are satisfied, then you learn from that person. Whatever that person is telling, you try to do, and you try to implement in your life and see whether it benefits for you or not. Ultimately, it is your own experience that is the teacher, and your own deep desire to learn is your true guru. The outside guru and the person you think of as guru is only a manifestation of that deep desire. This also I have told in the previous webinars, and I'll repeat that many times. Guru is not outside of you. Guru is within you. Okay? So you have to become your own guru. You have to learn from your own experience. That is the guru. So you may learn from many people. In fact, you should learn from every experience in life. All right. So if somebody is teaching yoga in town, you go learn from them. Try to follow what they've told you, what they have taught you. And if that leads to that experience of wellness within you, peace within you, then you are going in the right direction. Ultimately, you see, our attachments, our cravings to the outside world have to go down, and there has to be a sense of peace within us. That is what is important. Okay, so if we do yoga and we get stuck with how flexible my body is, and there is a sense of ego and I can do this and I can do that, if that happens, then it's all wrong. All right, so that is one. And secondly, which brand? Your own brand. So don't go for any brand or anything. All right, I've given you the general guidelines and the general principles. You do your own yoga practice and see what suits you. What somebody else may be doing in some gym, or this yoga, that yoga, hot yoga, cold yoga, whatever, may not be for you. You try and experience it yourself and see how you feel. Only then you should do consistently something that has given you the kind of experience that you are looking for. Maybe again, Sudhir, is this clear enough, or should I clarify further? The ultimate objective is to go towards realizing who we are. The ultimate objective is to realize our true nature, which is pure bliss. Pure bliss. It is independent of anything and everything. All right. So this bliss has to be discovered from within.
I need to.
Yeah, go ahead,
I need to tune my question further. I mean, yoga means there are 8 limbs of yoga, and yogasana is one of the part of it. So now the question here is to train ourselves in the yogasanas, how to identify, I mean, the good trainer.
Yeah, that is true. See, as I said, the trainer has to be experienced. The trainer has to have first-hand experience. The trainer should not expect anything from you in return. And the trainer should have your well-being in mind. Okay, so these are the 3 things we should try to figure out. Okay, I don't know how else you could sift through, the marketing material. If the yoga teacher says that, first you pay me this much fee and only then I will teach you yoga, then I don't know, maybe they are doing it as a business and not necessarily, to train somebody with I don't want to, sound negative, but it's up to each one of us. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you do. You find a good yoga teacher, you ask, several people in your neighborhood or amongst your friends. If you find you should do what you have learned. Forget about the asanas, forget about the physical postures. You do the yama and niyam. You can do it independently, isn't it? Shaucha, Shantosha, Swadhyaya, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhana, all of those things you can do yourself, right? Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Parigraha. For that, you don't need any teacher. Keep doing those things. Asana will happen. Physical exercises, even if you do some physical exercise or a sport you like, you do that. Asanas is not compulsory, okay? Asana is also one step towards that self-realization. Okay? So whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you enjoy doing, you do that. Don't do something just because somebody else is doing it.
Okay. Yeah. One more question. So when you started before practicing it, from whom you learn and from whom you followed?
Okay, so I grew up in Nagpur in central India. And in Nagpur, in Ramnagar, there is a place called Yoga Bhyasi Mandal, which was started by a yogi by the name Janardhan Swami. And he was a sannyasi. He had actually devoted his entire life to popularizing yoga amongst masses. And he wrote a book called Sulabh Sanghik Asane, means yogasanas that you can do regularly as a group. And I learned from one of his disciples who had a class 3 houses down from us. So I didn't have to go too far. That uncle used to teach early in the morning, 6:30 his class used to be. I used to go 6:30 to 7:30 or 8. And I learned all the asanas. I learned for only a few days, but then I started practicing on my own. And I've been practicing throughout my life. Since I learned when I was a teenager, almost more than 40 years, I've been practicing them more or less regularly. So that's why my body is still flexible. But in one of my webinars, I shared my journey about how I put on a huge amount of weight between the age 50 and 56. And then at age 56, somehow I got involved in purifying my diet, Ahar Shuddhi. I did that whole exercise for 2 years, 2.5 years now. It is still continuing. Because of that, my weight became normal. Asana started happening just like when I was a teenager or even better. So this is all, listen to some of these previous webinars, you will be amused.
Yeah. So
Next
next
question,
question
Sujay.
is, when you are in a good health position, maybe you can start doing all yoga asanas and all the stuff. But somebody is not that much healthy and already sick. What is the advice on this? Whether when to start and how to start?
That is true. See, this yoga practice or whatever I tell during my webinars, this is mainly for healthy people. Okay. So you see, where do we see all kinds of crowd? The biggest crowds are for entertainment shows, like Hollywood shows, Bollywood shows. If some film star is coming, just see how many people go. Okay. You see a lot of crowd there. You also see a lot of crowd for political rallies, but a lot of times those are managed and people are paid for coming to the rally. So don't believe those. That's fine. Then hospitals. There's a lot of crowd there also. Nobody is invited to the hospital, but there is a lot of crowd in the hospitals also. But what about the gym? See, these days there is an awareness, so more and more people are going to the gym. But the least amount of crowd is for the gym, and the even lesser than that is for programs like this, or when we talk about self-realization and all those things. Those things people are not interested. So these things people will get interested in after they have found out that all of these other things previously, whatever we have done, have not given me full satisfaction. So I have enjoyed those things for a while, but somehow they have not given me a sense of fulfillment. That is why I have come here now. So this entire forum or whatever I say is for people who are already healthy and who want to make sure that they maintain their health. I'm not a doctor. I am an environmental engineer. So I cannot really cure anybody's disease. All right. If you don't have any disease to start with, you can maintain disease-free body, mind, and go further on this path. So for them, it is very useful. If you have some disease, you go seek attention from a doctor or seek the help of a doctor. But once you are healthy, then you come and start learning all these things, and then you will not have to go back to the doctor.
Yeah.
Next.
So people who have already health problems like neck ache, back ache, spondylitis, because nowadays mostly work in a sitting job and sedentary life. So which trainer there are different schools of thoughts like Bikram yoga, Iyengar yoga.
Yeah, even the chiropractor. You see, there are many chiropractors here, people who do physical therapy and all that. You can go to those people. People are trained in that. See, I'm not trained in that, all right? So therefore, if you find somebody who can cure you from some of those diseases, you first cure yourself from those diseases. I can tell you that if you, regardless of what you're doing, if you eat to live, if you don't indulge. If you do some kind of regular exercise, some kind of regular stretching, your bodily ailments will go down. Okay? So most of the lifestyle diseases we have are because of our wrong eating habits, wrong sleeping habits, wrong sitting postures. All day long we'll be sitting in one posture in front of a computer like this. And then we get, a neck ache and all that. So even I get neck ache. If I sit down in the wrong posture for a long time, I get a neck ache. So all of these things we have to be aware, and you should look at these as signals for you to improve and for you to go further. So therefore, disease is not really all bad news. Disease is actually a good thing for us to learn about ourselves and make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. So if you look at disease in this manner, then disease is our friend. It's not an enemy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Go ahead, Sudhir.
Yes. We'll take the questions from the participants. Chakradhar ji.
Hi, yes. A very nice presentation. That Surya Namaskara slide really brought some very interesting ideas to my mind. I'll share with you later on.
Sure.
Wanted to just mention that I think many may have this thing about what time to do it, and there at different times there will be different asanas to do, I guess. And my favorite is doing yoga nidra before sleep. I think that's a practice that I think many would benefit from. It's very easy to do. It's in Shavasana, and there is you're taking your mind's eye to every part of the body. And the thing that I like the most about it is at the beginning, usually there is a sankalpa to take on what you're wanting to do or wanting to achieve. And usually when you go to do this before you go to sleep, I think that sankalpa stays with you through the night. So that's what I found very useful. I thought I'll share that.
That is great. In fact, whatever we are thinking of at the time of going to sleep, that same thing remains in our subconscious mind, and we wake up with that same thought. So a lot of times people will say you should chant something before you go to bed and then fall asleep while chanting. My practice is to chant in my own mind the 15th chapter of the Gita, because the 15th chapter of the Gita is the essence of the Gita, and Gita itself is the essence of the Vedas. So if I fall asleep while chanting the 15th chapter, then I wake up in the same consciousness when I wake up. This actually I learned from my mother-in-law, because when she realized that she was going to leave this body, she asked her husband, my father-in-law, to chant the 15th chapter. And while chanting the 15th, while the husband was chanting the 15th chapter, the wife left her body. I kept thinking about this. I said, why has she done this? Why has she done this? Even my grandfather had taught me 15th chapter when I was a child. I knew it by heart then. Then I completely forgot. Then I learned it by heart once again in the last couple of years. And I've been chanting it. I have heard many commentaries on the 15th chapter from several masters. The person who I consider as my spiritual guru, who doesn't consider anybody his disciple, who doesn't even tell us who his guru is, his name is Swami Anubhavananda Saraswati. After listening to his explanation of the 15th chapter, the kind of clarity I have got in my mind is phenomenal. So once you understand what this world is, who am I? What is the concept of God? And what should be our spiritual practice? So those things, when we understand clearly, when we do them, when we inculcate them in our life, then in that consciousness, if you fall asleep, see, sleeping is, it's like a mini death, is it not? When we are asleep, we are dead to the world. We are dead to our own identity as to who we are. In the deep sleep experience, we don't know who we are. Okay? So when we wake up again, the world starts. Again, I identify myself with my body. I see the world as it is and start my journey again. So if we understand who we are, and we leave this body in that consciousness, then there is no need to wear another body. Okay? You become one with the infinite. That is yoga. I hope this answers your question and gives some thought for other people also. So, there are any other questions, please?
Yeah, we'll go for another question regarding the yogasanas, especially Surya Namaskaras. People, we know that we need to in the open place where sun is rising in that time. But how in the people in the Western places with the cold countries, how should they follow it?
Correct. Same with me also, no? I live in a cold country. Right now I'm wearing a sweater. It is what, April 26th? In India, it's burning hot. But I still have to wear a sweater because it's still not that warm yet outside. I do yogasanas inside the house. I don't do outside. So if the weather is okay, only then you should do outside. You should not do yogasanas in an environment which is either too hot or too cold. You should do it in a comfortable place. If it is too hot, then you do it in a shaded area. You do it underneath a tree or whatever. Wherever you are comfortable, that is where you should do the yogasanas.
Okay.
Yoga is not torturing our body, by the way. So if somebody is torturing their body while doing yogasanas, they are not doing it right. I see the hands from Kalpak here. So let's unmute Kalpak. Kalpak, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
It's wonderful to hear you always. I just wanted to know, in the last webinar you mentioned regarding doing Surya Namaskara for 108 times. If we can do it from till we are there, that gives us freedom to leave this body whenever we want. Can you throw some light on that? I didn't get that 108 times. What is that?
Okay, so I'm going to mute you again. I'll answer this question now. See, that 108 number is not sacrosanct. All right. No number is sacrosanct. One of our young friends who happened to be on that webinar, I don't know if he is here now, Bharat Danav. He is only 19 years old right now, or maybe 20. He does 108 Surya Namaskar in about 35-40 minutes. So I told him, you do express Surya Namaskar. Then he and I had a chat later. And I told him the breathing technique and all that. And I said, you observe that. You become aware of that. This 108 number is not important. After doing Surya Namaskar, you should feel rejuvenated. Your breathing has to be completely clear. Your sinuses have to be clear. Your whole body should feel very, very light. Okay. When you get that feeling, then you stop. So if you get that experience in just one Surya Namaskar, one time somebody asked this question to Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, who is a yoga teacher, mystic and all those things, right? He's a realized yogi. He says, how long do you do yoga every day? He says about 20 seconds every day. He just realigns himself properly and he is okay for the whole day. He doesn't do any Surya Namaskar. Of course, those are realized yogis. We are ordinary seekers, ordinary sadhaks. So we do the Surya Namaskar as long as it is necessary. So the quality is more important than the quantity. So when you do the Surya Namaskar properly, when you do the breathing properly, I end up doing about 45 to 50 every day. Okay, for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, I will do them continuously. Okay, but I do them slowly. I do them gently. I am aware of my breathing at that time. And after that, I feel very light and rejuvenated. Then I do all these asanas. Then these asanas happen like breeze, basically. They happen so easily. So that's more important. Ultimately, once you realize that this body is only a small outward manifestation of our true self, okay, you maintain that outward manifestation in as best a state as you can, but then not get attached to it. Okay, so this number business is not that important. Okay, next question. I'll unmute Dr. Uttam Kalvane. I'm so glad, Dr. Uttam, you are here.
Yes, yes,
Can
yes.
you
I'm here.
can you please, yeah, go ahead and ask your question, please, or
Yes.
give
First
your
of all,
comment. By the way, Dr. Uttam himself is a yoga teacher, so if I have made any mistake, you have to please excuse me, okay?
no. First of all, the congratulations, Dr. Vikram. You have very nicely explained within the short time, that is only 30-35 minutes, about the journey of yoga. I'm not going to ask any questions, but I want to share something, what you are doing in Aurangabad, Maharashtra. We are doing the yoga at about 40 places. I have started these yoga classes. Generally, we are taking in open places. When there is what you are rightly mentioned, when there is the atmosphere is comfortable, then we can do. I want to add something. First of all, we do the warming. That is a Sukshma Vayam, we are calling that. Then asanas, then pranayam. After pranayam, if you do the dhyan, say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that will help the very large amount to keep our mind silent. And at the same time, if you do the mudras, mudra is nowadays that also have the very good effect on our bodies. Nowadays, for this to increase our immune powers, if we do the prana mudra, that will help our muscles. That is only my comment from my side. Once again,
Great.
congratulations.
Thank you so much, Dr. Uttam. It's nice to hear from you. So people in Aurangabad, please take advantage of Dr. Uttam's classes and instruction, and you will be benefited definitely. About that, there is no doubt. I'm going to unmute Harvinder Singh ji. Can you please ask your question? Go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, I have a couple of questions. First, I want to ask that what would be the sequence of asanas and pranayama? If asanas are before or pranayama before or after? And the second, I want to ask that what are the kriyas? We learned so much about that. Kriyas, Shat kriyas. What are the kriyas and what is the relation with yoga and asanas of these kriyas? If you can explain that.
All right. So typically, Patanjali Muni actually says that these are 8 steps, one by one. So yama, niyama, asana, then pranayama, right? So pranayama will happen more easily only after you loosened up your body through asanas. That's what he suggests. And see, I do Kapalabhati before I start doing the Surya Namaskar because I want to clean up my sinuses. Okay. But it may not completely get cleaned up when I'm doing the Kapalabhati. But then after I do the Surya Namaskar, then it clears up. And then I do the asanas. And then after that, if I feel like I do pranayama, I don't always necessarily do it. See, I try to do deep breathing all the time. Even while you're sitting down doing your work or even doing any other thing, just take a break every 1 hour or so. Just sit down and take a deep breath. All the way to the belly. So that also is a part of pranayama. So that's fine. And then the kriyas are extremely specialized. Kriyas, I cannot talk about kriyas on a webinar like this. You should learn the kriyas from a qualified yoga teacher, okay? Not on a webinar like this. So I would caution people against reading about the kriya and doing it. There are several cleaning kriyas. You know, I've myself done Shankha Paksharana. I do Jalneti all the time.
Okay.
I don't need to do it every day because my sinuses are very clear anyway. But especially in this COVID thing, if you can do the Jalaniti and keep your sinuses clean, that will be very good. So, but you have to learn that properly. You cannot do that just like that. That's what I would caution. But thank you for asking me this question. I'm going to mute you now and then I'm going to unmute Bharat Danav. So Bharat, why don't you ask your question, please?
Yes.
Bharat, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Basically now, yes. Right now there is lockdown going on and I'm right now in home. So that's why I can give so much of time for Surya Namaskar and all the other asanas. But once the schedule starts, normally I prefer going to the gym. So if I'm doing gym activities, what asanas or what pranayam would you suggest which will go best with the gym? Or would you suggest to do all these pranayam, leave the gym activities? What would be better?
So when you are able to go to the gym, go to the gym. All right. I also go to the gym. And if you can only do the gym or asanas, I do at least Surya Namaskar at home. Even if I don't have time to do all the other asanas, I will do the Surya Namaskar, because Surya Namaskar beats any kind of gym, by the way. So I would do the Surya Namaskar even when I'm traveling. I can do it in my hotel room. So Surya Namaskar, there is no compulsion that you have to have certain equipment. That is the beauty of these yoga asanas. You see, the body itself is your gym, isn't it? You use your body for weight training. So like when you are doing the Bhujangasana or you're doing that plank, see Surya Namaskar, how many times you do the push-up? Many times, right? So as many Surya Namaskar you do, that many push-ups you do, isn't it? So you use your body and your body's weight to help you. So Surya Namaskar, I don't miss. I try not to miss. Surya Namaskar, I do all the time. Okay, all 365 days a year. Unless I have something else going on and then I miss it, it's okay. But if you miss it, don't worry about it. I've sometimes during one of my tours to India, I could not do Surya Namaskar or proper asanas for almost 15 days. And then when I came back to the US and I did the asanas the 15th day, as if I had never missed it. My body was still so flexible and still so limber. That I attribute to the Ahar Shuddhi. Okay. Because of diet purification, because of eating mostly natural diet, the body remains flexible and body remains light even if you don't do the asanas. Okay. But I'm not going to advise people not do the asanas. You should do asanas every day. If you are not able to do, that's okay. Go to the gym. Enjoy. See, you are only 19, 20 years old. So you don't have to worry about all these rules and regulations. Okay. Enjoy your life. Do what you like to do and be healthy. Be happy. All right. I'm going to unmute Venkateshwaralu Garu.
Sir, am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. All these asanas and these things, these are only a means, not the end.
Correct.
As you said, it is self-realization. Out of these 8 steps, Ashtanga, Dharana, Jhana, Samadhi, they are called Samyama or something, I believe. At what stage one gets self-realization, starts getting the taste of self-realization? That is the most important thing, is it not? At what stage one starts feel of that self-realization?
Good question. Very good question. So, very difficult to answer that question for somebody else. Okay. So, if you eat a wonderful meal, how can I tell whether you are full or not? You have to know it by yourself, isn't it? So, but there are signals. All right. So one, first of all, if you are doing this yoga practice properly and all that, your body will feel like a breeze. Your body will become so light, you will not even realize that you have a body. It becomes extremely smooth, extremely frictionless, basically. It becomes a beautifully running machine. Okay, that's one thing that happens automatically. The second thing is your mind becomes calmer and calmer. Okay, your cravings will go down. So you don't seek. You see, if you understand that this world is not what it appears. Okay, this world actually appears to us the way we look at it. Okay, this world is basically what we think of it. All right. So if we give importance to the world, then the things in the world will attract us. We will crave them because there is a sense of otherness, me versus the world. When there is a sense of otherness, there is craving. Okay. But once that sense of otherness starts disappearing, then there is no craving. When there is no craving, there is no desire, then your mind is calm all the time. All right. So your desires will go down. Your body will be great. Your desires will go down. Those are the things that start happening to you. Okay. But don't consider that you are self-realized. I cannot say that I'm self-realized. Okay. If I say that I am self-realized, means what? There is still an I there, no? So as long as there is a sense of I, there is a sense of a distinct I, distinct from the rest. You're not self-realized. So that self-realization is like a butterfly. You know, if you chase it, it will run away. But if you sit still, it will come and land on your shoulder or on your head. You will not even know it. That's how it is. Well, we have completed 1 hour. So if there are any pressing questions, I'll take a couple more questions. But other than that, I think I've given you my number, my email address. Feel free to contact me, and then I'll be happy to talk to you separately. Is there any other hand that is raised? Somebody else wants to ask. Sudhir, are there any questions in the chat I have not answered?
Yeah, there is one question like, can you please elaborate the difference between dharana and dhyana as far as focusing on any object is concerned?
Yeah, you can actually focus on an object if you want, but as long as there is a focus on an object, that object is other than you. So there is still a sense of otherness, no? See, dharana means basically turning the direction of our life. Dharana is, earlier we are looking outside, we are looking at objects, we are looking at the world, and we are trying to get them, we are trying to obtain them. So that has to turn inwards. That is dharana. And then dhyana, you should not do any dhyana of a specific object. I mean, you can do in the initial stages, you may do the dhyana or focus on maybe a deity of your choice, or you focus on your breath. Okay. But as long as there is a sense of otherness between what you are thinking of and you, okay, there is still a sense of duality. There is still a sense of otherness. So meditation is not to be done. When you do the meditation, the meditator is there. Okay. In true meditation, the meditator disappears. Then meditation happens. So meditation has to happen. Meditation should not be done. So ध्यान करना नहीं होता है, ध्यान देना होता है, या ध्यान में रहना होता है. Any other questions?
Today we got a good jnana on dhyan. No, today we
All
got
right.
a
Well,
good
there is one other
jnana.
question. What is the natural diet you follow? See, the natural diet I recommend or I follow is fruits, vegetables you can eat without cooking, nuts. I soak my nuts, and sprouts or soaked beans. We have to soak them very well. All right. So these are the 4 things I try to follow. I try to eat mostly fruits and nuts. Okay. But sometimes I also eat cooked food. My wife is a wonderful cook. I am also a good cook. So sometimes if I feel like eating something warm, I cook something and eat. There is a way to cook food. You should cook it in open pot. You should not overcook it. Of course, rice, you will have to cook properly. But vegetables, you should not cook the heck out of it. You should gently stir fry it in an open pot and then eat. I like to eat like that. So I do eat like that every now and then. Gauri has said Surya Namaskar is a mixture of 8 to 9 asanas, so it's best. Yeah, exactly. So if you do only Surya Namaskar and not do any other asanas, that's also okay. Sasmita is asking, how long should we hold the breath before exhaling? Don't push it. It has to be natural. Only hold it to the extent it is comfortable. If it is not comfortable, you are overdoing it. So don't do that. Any other questions? How to self-control eating habits after eating raw fruits or veggies? I get more craving for junk. Yeah, you should go back and listen to the 2 webinars we've done on Ahar Shuddhi. All of your questions will get answered. If you still have questions, you send me a WhatsApp message. I'll talk to you separately. So,
Yeah.
any other? I'm just going through this chat here and trying to find out if I have not answered something.
Yeah, there is one last question relating to the coronavirus epidemic. So, because any special breathing technique to follow for especially for these days?
What is the breathing technique, especially for these days?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you do the deep breathing. Okay. Keep your sinuses clear. So you can do the Jalaneti if you can learn it properly. And make sure when you are going out, then you are covering your nose with a handkerchief or something so that you don't breathe things directly. When you come inside the house, you blow your nose, clean up your nose. And don't go too close to people. So remain at least 6 feet away from people, social distancing. There is one point here, one comment here by Dr. Selvan I want to address. It says, if one wants to make a living, one can charge for the time you spend, but teaching should be for the benefit of the learner. I completely agree. So what did the gurus used to do, or even now they do. The true guru, what he will do, he will teach. He will teach with the benefit of the student in the mind, right? And then whatever dakshina the student gives, the guru will accept it with great humility and great sense of gratitude, okay? But not demand something. So that's what not seeking something means. So is there any other question I have not answered, or anybody has raised a hand? I'll be happy to. I think most of them have gone away, or all the hands are now down. So this is great. Wonderful. Thank you so much once again for inviting me here and hosting me, Sudhir. Great to be with all of you here. There is one chat which has just now come. Let me see what that question is. Very effective webinar, sir. I'm following the raw diet and exercise. This is great. Wonderful. Appreciate your coming here. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep in touch. Keep doing yoga. Stay healthy and happy. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Vikramji. Simply enlightening us and empowering us with the information of yoga. Till now, we are feeling yoga means only yogasanas for better fitness, for better postures. But within short time, you gave really what is the real meaning of yoga, and yogasanas part of yoga. And thank you all for connecting today's webinar. And we'll share this recording. Yeah, thank you all. With this, we'll conclude today's webinar.